degree student, welcome back. This week, my assistant lecturers and I will be covering a topic on the sexual exploitation of minors. To start off, let's talk about a recently reported case from a few years back which took place in Malaysia. 2021, one of the most notorious pedophiles was finally arrested after sexually exploiting children between the ages of 2 and 16 in a town called Ludin, Sarawak for 14 years. Lanham was tracked down by the police at one of the Sarawak COVID-19 quarantine facilities and was immediately arrested and pleaded guilty to 18 charges in court. He was identified to have abused 34 victims, though the number is believed to be allegedly higher, and was sentenced to 48 years in jail and 15 strokes of the cane. How crazy is this case?
So, what exactly happened and what is the significance of this? Allow me to brief you with some background information so you can understand better. Sexual exploitation of minors is defined as actual or attempted abuse from operation of power against vulnerable children under the age of 18 for sexual purposes, which frequently involves manipulation, force, or deception. Even if the sexual act is consensual, victim may still be sexually exploited. According to the research statistics, there were approximately 29.1 million reports from electronic service providers in 2021 that detail instances of what appear to be child sexual exploitation material they have become aware of from the system, with the majority of reports coming from well-known social media and telecommunication platforms like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Google, and Snapchat, which are widely accessible and available to most minors today. Moreover, another research dataset shows that the cases of sexual exploitation of minors are actively increasing with each passing years. It was also discovered that the victims in the cases were mostly adolescent girls with a slight gender bias towards the female gender.
There are various forms of sexual exploitation. Firstly is pedophilia, which is a psychiatric disorder characterized by a sexual attraction to prepubescent children. Moving on is grooming, which occurs when an individual engages in predatory conduct in attempt to build trust and emotional connections with a vulnerable child with the intention of engaging them in sexual activity at a future date. Followed by a child marriage, which is a form of union, either recognized legally or not, between minors who are individuals under the age of 18 and a legal adult, or even another child. Moving on, children who are victims of sexual exploitation suffer from devastating consequences. Sexual exploitation can negatively impact a victim's physical and mental health, family and social relationships, the outlook on life, along with future relationships with their own children.
Sexual exploitation of minors is a taboo topic which is normally not talked about. However, don't we all believe that children who are brought from life on earth should be given an opportunity to thrive and to be author of their own life. No child should be robbed of their childhood by selfish adults who are unable to seek help in order to control their predatory urge and desire. Therefore, it is important for us to spread insight and awareness on this topic to educate and encourage the public, start from you students, to take an action in order to protect minors from being exploited as well as getting victims the help by their needs. By enhancing community cooperation and communication with regards to concern about child sexual exploitation, chance of child sexual exploitation can be significantly decreased in a community that actively address the issue. Therefore, in our lesson today, we will also be discussing a research conducted recently on the sexual exploitation of minors along some philosophical perspective on the issue.
The research conducted on sexual exploitation of minors consisted of a survey and an interview. The survey consisted of 12 questions targeting all group of people to provide information about their understanding on sexual exploitations of minors. It consists of closed-ended questions featuring the yes or no, frequency and rating scales, along with open-ended questions which are focused on gathering opinions. As for the interview, 3 of the participants were adults while the remaining 3 participants were minors. That being said, 2 different sets of questions were prepared for each group. The participants from the adult group were interviewed more on questions regarding their awareness and opinions as a third party, while the minors were interviewed based on a set of more directed questions such as what they would do in a given situation and their opinions on the matter as the involving age group.
To summarize our findings from the survey, most of our participants were aware of sexual exploitation of minors and think that it is a real-world issue which needs to be stopped as immediately as possible. Same responses were observed under the adult group interview. As for the minors group, only 1 out of 3 of our participants was deeply aware of the issue with sexual exploitation in minors and could comfortably speak up on the matter. The rest were less aware and mentioned that they would feel quite uncomfortable discussing the topic with friends or even trusted adults. Fortunately though, all our interviewees were able to recognize potential red flags in the relationship based on our questions and displayed knowledge on how they would protect themselves from falling victims to exploitation in future relationships.
Moving on, we would like to discuss the sexual exploitation of minors from various philosophical perspectives to help us understand the issue from a wider perspective. To start off, we will be comparing Western and Eastern philosophy. In Western philosophy, the issue with sexual exploitation is discussed more in aspects of ethics and metaphysics. In terms of ethics, sexual exploitation is assessed and said to violate equality, one's dignity, and the principle of autonomy, which refers to a state of high governance. Similarly, in metaphysical aspects, some Western philosophers perceive the act of acting on sexual impulse as a reduction in dignity for all the parties involved. This is because they think that the goals of human existence are more significant than being involved in such activities. For instance, German philosopher Immanuel Kant firmly believed that all beings should govern their own lives and treat each other with respect and dignity. In contrast, Eastern philosophy deals with the issue of sexual exploitation of minors through a more spiritual and holistic approach, particularly present in aspects of Buddhism and Hinduism. For instance, according to the 5 precepts, Buddha advised to abstain from harming living beings, stealing, sexual misconduct, false speech, and intoxicating drinks or drugs, while Hinduism emphasizes on the concept of dharma, which focuses on aspects of morality. Clearly, exploiting minors or any beings in general is seen as a failure in abiding by these values and principles.
As for philosophy of Satyajitra, it is mainly tied to positive aspects of life such as feelings of being safe, happy and successful, along with the achievement of inner tranquility and well-being. Based on the previous aspects of philosophical analysis discussed above, sexual exploitation of minors is considered to be a sinful crime, which brings about a lot of negativities as it causes harm to its victims. That being said, the act of sexual exploitation goes against the principle of the philosophy of Satyajitra because, to put simply, the philosophy of Satyajitra focuses on positivity, while the sexual exploitation of minors is negative in nature. Therefore, they cannot coexist with one another in the pursuit of Satyajitra. In order to embrace the philosophy of Satyajitra fully, we must be rid of crimes such as the sexual exploitation of minors, all in its form.
To conclude, sexual exploitation of minors is an unacceptable act as it subsequently causes children to suffer from adverse health, mental, psychological, and social issues which can significantly impact their life as a whole. Therefore, there should be a sense of urgency for us to come up with strategies and solutions immediately in order to reduce the occurrence of such issues, because it puts children and teenagers who are part of the generation that represent the future of our country in harm. It is important to note that cases involving the sexual exploitation of minors is a global issue which have been around for decades and are still actively being amplified through technological advancements such as the internet and social media platforms. In that case, we can utilize the same medium to spread awareness regarding this issue to the general public in order to eradicate this criminal act. Lastly, it is also important for government authorities around the globe to get involved and take action to provide a safe environment for our youth, like you all, and protect them from being exploited. That's all for our lecture today. We hope you learn a lot in this video. Thank you, students. See you in the next lecture video.